So basically what I'm going to try to do is to map Western knowledge and to show how what we consider knowledge as neutral and universal has origins in Western Europe and has been written and created by a specific race and gender and social class. So we have to start on semiotics because as Benaviste point out, if we move the attention from the enunciated, that is basically the traditional semiotics by Saussure and the French structuralism, that was centered on the structure of the sign itself, on the content of the sign. So when we move the attention from there to the enunciation, that is the subject that is producing and manipulating signs, then we are moving from the semiotic kind of analysis to a linguistic analysis of the sentence, and we have the extension from linguistic theory and analysis from the sentence to discourse prompted the introduction of discursive frame or conversational frames. And here we could think about the work of Foucault, because basically understanding the discourse is understanding that knowledge is always structured by frames that give us some references. And at the same time, for example, if I use the structure of art, the discourse of art, there are some truths that they can be considered as a fact because we are standing in that discourse. But when we get out and we step out of this discourse, those facts are not anymore facts, and maybe are not true anymore. So we have two types of frames. The first type of frame is the everyday frames that are regulated by conceptual agreement. These frames are like frames that you have with your family, with your friends, and basically it's like, for example, when you with your friends understand the meaning of words in specific ways because you have an internal agreement in between you. And we have, on the other side, we have like more serious frames that are the disciplinary frames. And these disciplinary frames are the scholarly frames, scholarly disciplines. They have origins in, we could track these origins in the European Renaissance. And during this time, the frame of knowledge was under the Christian theology. So we could say that this is the Christian theological frame. And knowledge was divided into categories, was trivium and quadrivium. As always, like Western knowledge is always like divided in dialectical structure. Then with the secularization of knowledge in the 18th century, we got this knowledge divided in disciplines and supported and anchored in institutions. So knowledge, once again, in two, where we have human sciences and natural sciences. And human sciences then develop in social sciences and they are ideographic sciences, so about meaning and interpretation. On the other side, we have the natural sciences like biology, chemistry, math, and they are more about nomothetic sciences, about laws and explanations. These two frames, they were always like on conflict because, for example, this is also the transition from one frame to the other one is related with the transition of political power. Because when the church started like losing power, and then that power was transferred to the institution of government and universities and science, so we had all this shift of knowledge too at the same time. So, for example, as instance, we can think about history. In history nowadays, we are not saying anymore after Christ, but now we are saying in the common era. So this is like a small example of how these two frames have been fighting always. However, these two frames, like, they agree in something, and it's everything, every culture, every knowledge out of these frames was considered sub-knowledge or not knowledge. So we could say that then, if we frame this again, like in a big discourse, then could be the Western culture. That's as Mignolo named it. This is the Western cosmology. So Western cosmology was anchored in Western Europe as a frame of colonialism, was anchored in institutions and imperial languages. So the 6 imperial languages are Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, and English. During the first period, there is the Christian theological period. Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese were the main languages. And then with the Enlightenment and the secularization of knowledge, this power was transferred to German, French, and English. The 6 languages come from the root of Greek and Latin, not Arabic, not Mandarin, not Hindi or Urdu, not Aymara or Nahuatl, or any other language in the world. So these institutions were a reaction to prevail theo and ego politics. We could say that this is theopolitics and this is ego politics. So, of knowledge. So basically their job as institutions was to prevail the colonial matrix of power, prevail authority, gender and sexuality, knowledge and subjectivity. So this is knowledge, everything out of this is subjective, and the structure of race, in which the privilege is for the white race. So basically this is a structure of knowledge of white supremacy.